Hello, I'm Derek Edwards, and I'm with the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. And today we're going to have a conversation with Zachary Shoup, and we're going to learn a little bit about Atlas Precision. So, Zachary, thank you for being here with us today. And if you will, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Zach Shoup. I work for a company, Atlas Precision, and we are injection molders. We're a custom molding shop, mostly in the automotive industry. We do a lot of electrical connectors. So, if you pop open the hood on your car, there's all those wire harnesses and covers that are very easy to break sometimes, can be very frustrating, but we do those for all the big names, Ford and all the Japanese companies. And so my main responsibilities here at Atlas, I'm a lead process engineer. And so I'm responsible for leading the engineering team, the process engineering team, setting up new molds. We set up all the parameters when we bring in a new mold to a machine. There's hundreds of parameters you got to dial in to make it run effectively, and so that's the main thing we do in processing. We work with tooling, conditioning molds, getting them ready for production, and I also work a lot with quality. If we have problems, or our customers seeing problems with the parts, we work with quality to figure out why did this happen, how is it never going to happen again, and put together something to send back to the customer to make them feel good and know that it's not going to happen anymore.
Okay, great. And tell us, how did you choose your career? Give us an idea of what led to that.
So it's kind of a funny story. I originally was moving up to the Asheville area. I had a job all lined up. I had interned with this company. I already had my apartment picked out, and I was moved. And about a week before I was supposed to start, I got a call, and basically they said, we're very sorry right now financially, we cannot hire someone. And it was devastating. I was fresh out of college. And so I really just needed a job at the time. And so I came to Atlas just working on the floor while I was looking for other career opportunities. And they said, hey, you've got a chemical engineer down here pouring up parts, looking through and packaging them. So they actually moved me into quality from there. And then they ended up going into process engineering and then ended up leading the process engineering team a couple of years later. So the career kind of found me.
So the other company that you had interned with, was it a manufacturing kind of company?
It was Flint
Okay.
Group, and they do printing blankets, which
Right.
basically pulls the ink and pushes it down on newspapers at very high speed.
Okay. So give us an idea of what kind of education, training, or background does your career require?
So you're working with big machines, so mechanical aptitude and being interested in mechanical things is a great way to start. An understanding of hydraulic and electrical systems. We're becoming more and more automated, and getting PLC control under your belt and things like that can really help, especially today. We're just the problem is we don't have enough people sometimes, and so the more highly automated you can make things run, the better for the company and everyone else. There's also trainings that Atlas has sent me to called Master Molder. I've completed Systematic Molder, Master Molder 1, Master Molder 2. Those are awesome, very intensive 2-week courses. You get graded. You actually have machine testing done on site. And so those were incredible for giving me a head start to just kind of hit the ground running when I came back from those trainings.
I think you made an important point that the company is investing in you by sending you to these trainings that give you skills that could be portable to other jobs and careers, right?
Atlas has been very good to me. I've probably been to almost 10 trainings at this point, a lot of trade shows. They're very interested in developing their workforce for the future. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
That's one of the unsung stories of modern manufacturing is that you can go and get a college degree. The company wants you to be trained. They want you to be educated. And that, I think, a lot of people are not expecting that in manufacturing. They're thinking, oh, well, no, only dumb people go to manufacturing because they don't know how to do anything. And it's like, you walk in one of these factories and it's like, there's not a bunch of dumb people walking around because the machinery is too sophisticated, right?
There's not a lot of people walking around really anymore. You
Yeah.
look at when I came in here, I've been here almost 6 years. When I first came in, we would have one operator for every 3 to 4 machines running. And today we're one operator for almost 7 to 10 machines. And that's through packaging, improvements and things like that. So yeah, it's called the hot term is Industry 4.0, but it's just bringing technology into every nook and cranny, every aspect of the business. And it really helps when you have very low unemployment rates like we saw before COVID. I mean, it was hard just to get people on the floor. So the
Yeah.
more automated we become, the better it is for everybody.
Well, and that has been a challenge for our employers, not just in our area, but across the state and across the nation, of how do you get people to come, the pipeline of people coming in. So that's kind of part of the reason why we're doing these kind of interviews, is that hopefully we've got things out there on social media where people can look and say, well, okay, well, here's a different perspective on this sector that maybe I've been told to stay away from, or that I've never considered. So, I mean, we know manufacturing is not for everyone, but there's a lot of people that could have really good careers, get an education within that field, who I think are not giving it any thought at this point.
The other thing is too, people think of
Go ahead,
oops,
Zach.
sorry, I think I'm breaking up a little bit. I was just going to say, I think people think of injection molding too as maybe a dirty industry. But it's very clean facility here. We really take pride in that, keeping everything waxed, keep hydraulic oil off the floor. But it's not what you would think of as a factory. Looking back at the olden days, it's an advanced factory, and it's very clean and it's quiet. It's climate controlled. So in terms of manufacturing, it's a great place to work.
That's a great point, because yes, that is the very common misconception, is that you're going to walk in and it's going to look like a textile factory from 1935.
Right.
And no, it is not that at all. So since we're talking about the workplace, what does a typical day kind of look like for you?
That's probably one of my favorite aspects of my job is every day can look so different just depending on what's going on that day. I could come in and, sometimes Mondays are interesting. There was problems over the weekend, got a lot of machines down. So we got to kind of divide and conquer up with my team, figure out what's going on, do some troubleshooting. Some days I come in, we have a brand new mold. It's never had plastic in it before. So I get to start setting that up and working with cooling on conditioning. Some days I have a lot of meetings. I do interact with customers a lot. Either planning on transferring tools in, transferring projects in, dealing with quality complaints, looking at tooling improvement. So it's really every day is a new adventure for sure, and it keeps things interesting. And I think you love your job. I'm constantly looking at my watch saying, dang, it's already 3 o'clock. I haven't gotten enough done today. I'm not waiting for the day to end. It's just time kind of flies by.
That's great. So the next question is, well, what do you like most about your career?
So injection molding is it's very interesting because it's like 90% scientific, data-driven decisions and testing, setting up controlled tests. But then there's also like this 10% that's kind of a dark art. Plastic flow behavior is very complex, and we have a lot of very advanced modeling softwares out there, but we still cannot predict exactly what's going to happen when we inject this plastic into a cavity. And so I'm very good at being data driven and doing these controlled tests, but then there's some people that have been doing it for 30 years that just have kind of develop an intuition for the plastic. And it makes it very interesting. It's not always just this defined, set in stone way of doing things. There's so many different ways of looking at it. And we're learning more and more about it every day. And yeah, it's just it's very complex plastic flow behavior.
So do you all think that is the atmosphere impacting that? Like if it's really humid and hot on a summer day, does that have an impact versus a cold winter?
Just about it. So we are climate controlled. So we try to eliminate some of that. But for example, in our warehouse, we store materials. And if it's in the summer, it's very humid, the materials can absorb more water. Well, now it's going to take longer to dry the material. So there's literally one day I sat down and tried to write a list of what possibly could affect the quality of our parts, including machine parameters and environment. There was hundreds. There is so much that goes into this, and that's kind of also where the dark art comes in, where intuition comes in. And you're going out there and you're listening and said, well, it sounds kind of weird. Why does it sound like that? And it's our new machines are very nice. I get tons of data out of them. You compare them to older hydraulics, you're kind of processing blind. But even with all of this data available, sometimes you run into things that you really need to. I'll go to some of the old timers and get some of their wisdom and see how they used to do it. It's challenging that way.
Well, so speaking of challenges, give us a couple of challenges that you faced in your particular career. And these could be, well, you've kind of already given us one, which was you kind of got started at your company because another job fell through. So that was a challenge that you had to meet right there. And then I guess you made the correct decision, which was not to go home and go back to your parents' house and curl up in a ball.
Right.
My world's ruined. I think a lot of times for young people, one of the big things about maturity and growing up is understanding that life is full of challenges. Even people who are seeming to have things, everything looks like it's going great for them. They've got challenges that they face. Everybody has challenges. It's what we do in the face of them that is going to define who we are as people. But in your work life, as you're progressing through your company, talk about some of the challenges that you've had to face there at Atlas.
So probably the biggest challenge is what I call historical molding, or the phrase, we've always done it that way. Why do we do it this? I'll kind of challenge, hey, why are we doing this task in a very labor intensive way? And you'll hear, well, that's just how we've always done it. And kind of what you'll find, especially as a younger person coming into the industry, you have all these new ideas and you want to see change, and you've learned things at school you'd want to implement. And the biggest challenge is a lot of people don't like change. It makes people uncomfortable. They like the way they do their job. They want to continue doing it that way. And so that is a huge challenge for engineering. Is I can go out and write a procedure and say, this is how you're going to do it from here on out. But if the people don't believe in it that are doing it, or if it doesn't make sense to them, they're not going to do it. It's going to get dropped in a week when no one's looking. And so it's really about developing with the people that are doing the job. You don't just go out and write a new procedure. You grab the person that's going to be doing this new job and you work with them and say, hey, here's the problem. This task is taking twice as long as it should. Here's what we want to implement. What do you think? And that kind of gets them a buy-in. And so now they're invested in this new process or procedure, and they're more likely to stick to it. But that is definitely the biggest challenge, especially in injection molding, is just you have a lot of historical or hysterical molders. You'll hear, well, 10 years ago, Billy Bob said you turn the knob to the right when it makes the bad part and it makes it good. And so just trying to understand, we need to document these things. We need to have an understanding of why we're making these changes. And just because we used to do something a particular way 10 years ago, by no means it's the best way to do it.
Okay. I think that's a challenge that's in a lot of industries where, in some cases, they're doing it that way because it's been the right thing to do. But then in other cases, everybody thinks that's the right way to do it. And yeah, they don't necessarily want to hear that, well, we can do it in a more efficient manner, that we can save time and money, because that's what productivity is all about, is saving time and money, and having fewer steps in a process. Um, so as we look at your particular career field, what characteristics do you think someone needs to have that might have an interest in? It could be more broad, it could be manufacturing, or it could be more specific to something like injection molding.
Yeah, so really, in broad terms for manufacturing, being data driven, especially as an engineer, you must be data driven. You need to come and you need to be making decisions based on data. And you need to be willing to accept and learn from your mistakes and own up to it. The worst thing you can do is try to cover something up. I always tell people at work, if you make a mistake, you crash something, you come and talk to me and say, hey, Zach, here's what happened. I screwed up. I shouldn't have done it this way. I will do my best to protect you. You're not going to get in trouble for that. But if you break something and you try to cover it up, now I got to go investigate what happened. Well, now you're going to get thrown under the bus. So just accepting that you are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's how you learn and develop. You take risks, and mistakes come with it. And the last thing would be, learning to work with people who may be less educated than you, but they know more about the job than you. You can't come in as a cocky young engineer and say, well, I know everything. You guys are doing all of this wrong. You really come in knowing nothing about your industry. You come in, you know a lot of math, took all these high level courses. But when it comes down to it, when you finally choose what field you're going to go into, you probably don't know much about that field. And the people that have been doing the job for 30 years, even though they maybe just have a high school degree, they know more than you, and you need to learn from them. And that applies to any manufacturing you walk into. And it develops good relationships with people on the floor when they don't see you as a cocky engineer walking in, but someone coming in trying to understand the industry and trying to learn from you and work with.
I think that's a very important point, is to have humility, and to know and to not have the attitude of, oh, well, I already know it all. Because no, you don't know it all.
You know nothing.
You don't know it all until you're actually in there and you've worked in that job for a period of time. And so that's very good advice. Okay, so if I'm a middle or high school student and I'm looking at what the courses I'm going to take and what I'm going to do between now and the time I graduate from high school, what should I do to prepare to enter your career field in the future?
And so if you're interested in injection molding, there's tons of resources out there to start learning about injection molding. But what I would do is probably get a 3D printer. It's going to be the future of molding. I got a 3D printer recently and I've been loving it. And right now we're kind of on the precipice where, if you're making 10,000 units of a plastic part, it's starting to make more sense to 3D print it versus building a $50,000 mold around it. Right now, 3D printing is really still in its infancy, but it's really taking off, and we're starting to see a lot more of it. We're starting to see requests for quotes for 3D printed parts. I think the appeal is you don't have to have this huge upfront capital expenditure of building a mold. I can start making you parts right away. And right now, the technology is getting to the point where we're approaching the parts being as strong, or in some cases stronger than injection molded parts. It's still a very slow process, but it is the future, and it will slowly take some of injection molding's share of the business as technology gets faster and better. And so really getting in that early, I think in the next 10 years, we're going to start seeing a lot less 1 and 2 cavity molds and a lot more 3D printing. Now, when you look at things like making bottle caps for Pepsi, You probably have 128 cavity plus mold. Every 3 seconds that mold opens, drops hundreds of parts. That's probably not going to be replaced with 3D printing anytime soon, but it is the new up and coming thing. And a lot of injection molding companies are kind of late to the game getting in on it. So if you could come in with a lot of knowledge in 3D printing, you could have a huge step up, just looking into the future.
Okay. And so the next question is, well, so as we're talking about skills, what skills do you think are most important to be successful no matter what your career is?
So the biggest thing is you're not doing this work in a vacuum. You're working with others. So learning to work and communicate with others that applies to any job in the world. I mean, unless maybe you're working up in Alaska by yourself or something, but you have to learn to work with others. You could be the smartest person in the room, but you can't communicate your ideas and interact with your coworkers and customers. You're not going to advance in your career. It's very easy to be shoehorned as an engineer as just being a troubleshooter, and you get called on in certain times. But if you're good at communicating and organizing people, you can keep advancing your career. You can start managing people. Maybe you could get into technical sales. And so it's all about making contacts, interacting with other people, and communication.
Okay. And then, is there any other advice that you would want to give to someone who's entering the workforce in this day and age?
Just really embrace change, embrace new technology. That is, no matter where you're going, technology is continuously rolling forward. I don't care what industry you're in. And so you need to be on the cutting edge of that. And so, embrace the fact that your job might not look the same a year from now. Be willing to accept that there is change coming.
And that you're going to continue to learn beyond high school.
Exactly.
To learn your whole working life. I think that's something that a lot of times young people don't maybe aren't thinking of, is that your learning doesn't stop just because you leave high school. So you're going to continue on into the future. Well, I want to say thank you to Zachary Shoup and to Atlas Precision for participating in this interview today. Zach, you did a great job. I want to say thank you to Henderson County Public Schools for sharing the question list with us. This has been a production of the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. We'll see you next time. Thank you.